Council will make a final decision on these items using the Planning Commission recommendations as a guide. Items reviewed at tonight's Planning Commission meeting may be considered by the City Council on February 27th, 2018. Items not approved by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council within 30 days after Planning Commission denial. If an item is appealed to the City Council, a public notice sign will be placed on the property at least 7 days prior to the City Council meeting, and a public notice will be placed on the city's website, www.cityofconway.org. All right. The first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the January 16, 2018 meeting. Commissioners, I assume that you got a copy of those in your packet from Ms. Skeeto.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion to approve on the floor. It has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing that there is none, I'll call us to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item is the report from the subdivision committee.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, the subdivision committee met to review a request for the Weatherstone Phase 3 preliminary subdivision. It required one vote to approve the drawing as submitted for Milford Drive that had a dead-end street that exceeded 150 degrees, but we approved that unanimously as drawn. No other requests came before the committee.
Thank you, sir. On to the public hearing section of the agenda tonight. The first item on the agenda is request to amend Club Villa's Plan Unit Development Final Development Plan.
Good evening, everybody.
Sir, if you would state your name and your address.
Yes, sir. I'm Landon Sanders, and I live at 2355 Springcrest Street here in Conway. And this is the request for a PUD modification for the Club Villas PUD on Country Club. And I appreciate you guys for reconsidering this. The plan here is, what we're requesting is to amend this from approval for 3 homes to approval for 5 homes. And this is much different than the last go around. The last go around we asked for 7, and we're just asking for an increase of 2 units here. And as Mr. Patrick pointed out in the reconsideration hearing, this is consistent with traditional R1 zoned areas. They're going to be 65 or 66 foot wide lots. And I've spoken with the neighbors, and at the first Planning Commission meeting, you know, there was opposition from neighbors. At the City Council meeting, there wasn't any opposition from any of the neighbors after we had worked out some restrictions that would benefit them with this PUD plan. And as you read in the at the reconsideration hearing, one of the neighbors, Miss Ellis, wrote a letter for you guys, and she said that she was okay with the plan, and she just would like some restrictions that would be, you know, favorable to the neighbors. And, you know, that we're all on board with that. And those restrictions are, 1, we need a drainage swell in the rear of the lots to alleviate the severe drainage issue that is going on with those surrounding neighborhoods. And also, that there will only be south and east facing windows, and that's to help promote neighbor privacy. And then also, Mr. Pennington, he's open to working with the neighbors on the fence issue. I know Miss Ellis has indicated that she would like the fence to be a little bit taller, and we've worked with her, and I think that that's going to be an issue that can be resolved. And another difference in this plan is that we're asking for 5 driveways for each unit to have its own driveway. The report indicates that similar streets like Ferris and Salem, that this hasn't been a problem. But if it is, I think Mr. Pennington is okay with working with the city to do joint driveways in the event that that's necessary. But we would much more prefer there to be separate driveway for each unit. But that's it in a nutshell. We're just asking for it to be increased from 3 units to 5. And that is consistent with the R1 zone areas that is surrounding this whole area. And that's what we're going to ask for today. And again, thank you all for your patience and for reconsidering this project. We're going to ask that you guys approve this tonight. Thank you very much.
So, I should have stated this before. On all agenda items, the first person to speak in favor of will receive 10 minutes. And each additional person will receive 2. And the first person to speak in opposition will receive 10 minutes. Each additional person will receive 2. So is there anybody else to speak in favor of this motion?
Travis Sellers. Don't you get my address?
Yes, sir.
1125 Country Club Road. I am the neighbor adjacent to where this is going to happen, and I've reviewed the plan, and I'm for it. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dino Trawick. I live at 3 Riviera Drive on the north end of this property. I am not opposed to the development. I would like to request that the barrier, the vegetative barrier that is there on the north side would stay, or a fence or other vegetation would be kept there to provide a just a screen on
said on the north side?
North side, yes, sir. To next to the existing drainage, that would be either maintained or replaced. Thank you.
Thank you. Get back up in here.
Anybody else to speak in favor?
Use that one right there.
Anyone to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll call this back into commission. Commissioners, what say you?
It does look a lot different from the first time we saw this request, what feels like 87 times ago.
That's what I was thinking.
I know, it keeps coming back.
We just need to get this done.
We do. I think that the changes that have been made bring the request largely in congruence with our current zoning requirements as stated, as long as we address some of the key issues, which are outlined on page 13 under staff recommendations. The drainage swell being obviously a key portion of that, saying the drainage swell will be created in the rear setback area to help with neighboring drainage problems, as well as the second story windows shall be prohibited on the north and west facades. I believe we spoke at length in a couple of previous meetings in regards to both of those requirements. So I am sad to see that this came before the city council as an appeal, and they failed to take any kind of motion on it, requiring it to come back to us. But here we are.
So I have one concern about the swell. You know, the swell's indicated running, and there's an arrow pointing to the north.
Right.
But where's that water going to go? Are we intending on that just to be permeated into the site, and so it's just a collector or retainer, as you could call it?
If I'm not mistaken, on the north end of that property, isn't there a
Collection box.
a collection drainage ditch area, whatever?
There is a drainage ditch, a concrete drainage ditch on the northern side of this property, and it'd be directed straight to that.
Okay, good.
And I believe the last time it came before us, it talked about that not being at any type of capacity, so it could handle any extra load that it got from a swell pushing water toward that area.
Yeah, all the neighborhood people that I've talked to over there, you know, as long as there's not west-facing windows on the second floor and You know, they built in the privacy fence and, you know, I think they got some real drainage problems there that this is gonna alleviate. So I have no problem with this, you know, as compared to the 7 lots. So, you know, as long as those conditions are met, I don't have any problem with this now.
We need to specify on the fence, I mean, since it's not really,
Well, the one thing that I had off the original PUD, because I went back and looked at the original one, was there was some concern about, there was a landscaping buffer. So originally, I think there was a call for some landscaping to be put between,
With evergreens, that 8-foot fence on the back with evergreens is what they requested originally.
oh, yes.
And that's what they're still requesting from the people that reached out to me.
right, so that's not in the conditions, so I thought I'd call that out here.
Point out that was, they originally had an alleyway along the backside too. So there was a narrow green strip between that and then we had concern about cars going back and forth and that kind of thing. Might be okay to require additional landscaping back there, but you're also talking about a drainage swell.
Yeah.
So the idea is you need to move water through there, so. I don't have great advice. I mean, it could
You
be
put
it'll
those-
work, but it may not work so well when you're trying to get the water through.
You put
Yeah.
those evergreens on top of the swell, wouldn't you?
I don't know, I just brought it up because it was in the original, this for discussion. We can do whatever we need to do.
It's a PUD. we
The
can
request I
require
remember is 8-foot fence on the west and now adding the north for him, and with evergreens, planted however often it's gonna provide additional
So many
privacy
things,
stuff.
yeah.
I just say we put that in the motion where we make a motion. Make a motion to approve with the listed conditions that, on the staff recommendations, plus an 8-foot fence on the west and north side with evergreens, in that area.
I'll second it.
And I guess that'll be up to Brian and his team to sort that part out, but, so, make a motion to approve with those conditions.
I'll still second it.
I second.
She seconded.
I
He's-
seconded it.
He's making sure we
he's-
capture.
Okay.
All right. So I have a motion to approve, as stated with the following conditions. Lot shall be replotted to approximately 66 feet wide and 135 feet deep. Setback shall be 25 feet front and rear, 6 feet on sides. A drainage swell shall be created in the rear area to help with neighboring drainage problems. Second-story windows shall be prohibited on the north and west facades. Individual driveways shall be allowed. 8-foot fence on the west and north side with evergreens. So capture that properly?
Yep.
All right.
So,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Moving on. Next item on the agenda, Hoover request to annex 3.15 acres, plus or minus 3.15 acres.
I'm Melinda Hoover, and my address is 6162 Marshall River Road. And we're wanting to annex our property, which our neighbors are already in the city limits. So the neighbor that's right next to us, adjacent.
Are there any specific reasons that you're looking to annex the property now?
Just utilities, electric, and especially internet. We've been out there for almost for 20 years, and kept waiting on AT&T to get, high-speed internet access, and they still don't have it, and so I'm just tired of, that's one of the main reasons, is the internet, cable and TV and trash pickup, basically.
But my understanding is that the water and sewer won't come with the annexation, right?
That's what they put on that thing. We probably won't because, we already have a well and a septic. I wanted to be able to, and if our well, we've had 3 wells dug so far in 20 years, but The last one seems to be doing real well, but if, you know, if our well ever goes dry and we can't get water, you know, can't find water for whatever reason, because we've been in a drought, or, you know, I'd like to have the option to get it at some point, but it's so expensive from what they've told me at Conway Corp. To run it from the road to our house, that we can't, you know, it's just too expensive. We're not gonna get it unless it was an absolutely have to.
Okay.
So, and that might be 20 years from now. We might be dead and gone by then, you know?
Understood.
Okay.
Any other questions, sir?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak in favor of this request? Anybody to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll call this back into commission.
Got no problem with this. I'll make a motion to approve.
There's a motion on the floor to approve in about 20 seconds. Is there any
For the
question?
record, we'll call it
It's-
Delancey.
Kind of a no-brainer.
We'll give this to Delancia too. Is there any questions on this? Discussion? No discussion? Call the question then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Welcome to the city.
Welcome to the city.
Welcome packets in the mail. Almost in the mail.
Next item on the agenda, reliable appraisals request to rezone R2A to O2.
I'm Riley Swindle, 125 Las Colinas, Conway. I'm requesting a rezone for a property over on Faulkner Street that I purchased earlier this year. It's currently R2A. I'm requesting rezone to O2A. Property's, it's an old duplex, very old. It's been vacant for several years. And we did the one next door, I guess it's been 2.5 years. Basically gonna remodel it just like that. I got a picture of that if you guys want to see it. But that whole block of Faulkner Street is either C1 or O2 with the exception of this property, and then the one next door is a vacant lot. It's R2A also. So. Do I need to take the 10 minutes?
Did you want to see that picture?
Well, basically, it's just like that. It's the same layout.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Swindle?
No questions.
Thank you, sir.
So, is it gonna look like this?
Yes, it'll look just like that. That's the one my office is now, so I'm gonna make it look just like it.
Okay.
All right, anybody else to speak in favor of this? Anybody to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I'll call this back into commission.
Anybody else want to talk?
Any discussion?
I mean, this, everything else is the same right through there. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second it. No, Brooks seconds it.
There's a motion on the floor by Brian to approve. It has been seconded by Brooks. Any discussion, commissioners?
No discussion.
Seeing none, I'll call the question. All is in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, blankenship request to rezone from A1 to O1.
I'm Elizabeth Blankenship. I own the property that is in question. We're asking to change the zoning from A1 to O1. It's the 7 acres immediately behind 1306 South Donaghy. This is 1300, but it's actually 1306. The assisted living is on the front part of that. We had A1 with conditional use. We've sold the assisted living. We have the 7 acres behind the property that we're wanting to build patio homes eventually. And we met with the city and we met with Mr. Patrick. And because A1 requires, I think, street frontage, we would need to make this an O1 in order to build the patio homes. We did obtain a 25-foot easement with the new owners that would take, the easement goes from Donaghy to the back of that property.
And how many homes or how many patio homes are you envisioning on that property?
Our initial site plan has 15,
15.
and we have that site plan if you need to see that.
If you don't mind. Is there easement on the north or south side of the property?
I think,
North side?
I'm directionally challenged, but I think it's on the north side. But this shows the easement,
Oh, I see it.
the red part. What do you think, Sam?
I think it's going to access it via this, and put in a whole new road from up here, I guess.
This is the current.
The floodway was donated to the city last year, like almost 5 acres. That was floodway.
What else can go on?
South Donaghy is right here, is right here.
This falls through.
This is the entrance way to the assisted living.
15.
15. So no, that
I
was
have a,
assisted
I have a
living.
site plan if you want to see it.
Yes.
Extend a road, basically right in front of that assisted
You
living.
get that, Delancey?
That's an old folks home.
Right
They're
there,
gonna go through
right
Lake
across
Charles.
the street from that Sugar Creek
Okay,
is the entrance
like,
to that assisted living facility.
okay.
So essentially, it'll come through here and all the way back to the back of that.
Anybody else have any questions for Ms.
No, that's
Blankenship?
a lot of assisted living people live here now.
All right,
This is an actively used assisted living.
thank you. I think if they have any more questions, I'll call you back.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else to speak in favor of this?
Yeah, my name is David White. I work for the Tyler Group. We're handling our dealings with the city on this, and if you've got any questions on anything, just let me know here.
Okay, thank you.
Are these gonna be like assisted living patio homes?
They're independent living. They're independent, they're senior housing.
Are they gonna have anything to do with the Southridge Village? Are they gonna be associated with that in any way?
The only
More
way
like
to
a
get the
65 and older type
road to
community.
creek from South
Okay.
Donaghy, there will be no connection to the neighborhoods back here.
If
that
for
are
whatever
existing.
reason this falls through, what else can be
Or
on
to
an
the north.
O1?
And then to the south, you have Favre, that essentially runs.
Basically, office. I mean, O1, I think schools allowed. But there's a number of things you can do through a conditional use permit, which could even include retail or, trying to think along the other
But it would
things.
require
But it
conditional
would require a
use to
conditional
do
use permit by
something like
right
that.
with an O1. You're pretty much talking about office and school.
Okay.
Southridge and A1 with conditional.
Right, I mean, there's kind of two ways you could go about this. Originally, the Southridge Village, that, the whole property was all under their ownership, Southridge Village, and they're parceling off the Southridge Village part independently and retaining the ownership of the back part. That was all done, it was it was annexed into the city as agricultural A1, and you can do a assisted living nursing home through a conditional use permit. So a conditional use permit was applied over the whole property, basically, to allow that. And then again, with the O1 zone on this back half, you can, one of the included uses is an O1 is an assisted living nursing home. The patio homes, as long as they're all under one ownership and they're operated as a independent living campus type thing and not up for individual ownership, all that, then it works under O1 as a independent living, assisted living-ish, nursing home-ish. Our ordinance doesn't really define it so well, but it's all allowed under the O1.
So these are gonna be assisted, or these are gonna be patio homes for,
Independent.
and I'm not gonna say elderly, cause I'm there now, but,
Baby boomers, us,
but,
55 and older.
but you're gonna retain ownership? You're not selling them? They'll be leased, okay. All right.
Be very pretty back there. It's a little tucked away, a little spot. It's nice.
It's a concept you're seeing more and more with
Yeah.
these type developments. They may have envisioned that from the beginning, but we've had several, y'all have seen some actually come before you, that you have the independent living homes, and then they step up to a little bit more intensive, all the way to the memory care intensive type atmosphere. So it seems to be in keeping with what a lot of things are doing these days.
We have, if you've been in Heber Springs, we have the same development in Heber Springs.
Yeah.
So I think my main question or concern around this would be, due to partly the natural barriers that are there, and then the existing developments to the north, to the north. There's really no connectivity into this proposed section except for that newly created road that will share the existing assisted living that'll be coming off of South Donaghy. So essentially, all emergency personnel will have to go through that new street, and that would service the existing assisted living plus the new 15 units that they're proposing to be built, correct?
Right. And our fire marshal's taking a look at this. They're, what you are looking at is basically the land use, as far as whether this is the proper land use or not.
Yeah.
As this develops and they get into development review and that, then the fire department's definitely going to weigh in on it again. There's been some talk about a possibility of, what's the name of the little road there? Coming up Joyner Drive through, there's city land right there, so that has to take some partnership with the city to provide a connection through there. But there's been some talk about that, of possibly going from Joyner Drive to the north and bending
Where
into
that
this property.
cul-de-sac little thing is right there.
Yeah, the cul-de-sac over to the east, southeast.
Gotcha.
And the city's also looking at putting a trailhead there for.
Right. So the thought has been for years there possibly is to put some type of trailhead with a parking area to get to Stone Dam Creek Trail, so that might work in conjunction with a connection for them. I can't say that for sure yet, but fire marshal's taking a look at it, the fire department's taking a look at it, and even with the one connection, I believe it would still work. I'm not totally versed on all the fire codes, so I'm speaking lightly, but up to 32 units of single-family homes are basically allowed with one connection, and then you go beyond that, you provide two. If the more connections we can get, the better, obviously, for fire purposes. So it may or may not happen from Joyner Drive, but I think the development is served by fire code requirements now, even from Donaghy through that easement.
Anybody, that was good discussion. Anybody else to speak in favor of this motion? Or this agenda item, I should say, not a motion yet. Anybody to speak in opposition?
Hi, my name's Andy Cochran. I live at 1496 Pyramid. I'm actually not opposed to independent living, especially with being maintained and whatnot. I am concerned about the location, though, but because I do want to see the Tucker Creek or Stowe Dam Creek Trail expanded. I know it's going to go through that area. Of course, the train goes by once I start talking.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, I'm not opposed to it, but I am concerned about, because it is, like you said, a nice piece of land. It's adjacent to the creek. There is a plan to put a trail near there. Now, I haven't seen that plot that y'all are looking at. But I know, I'm just asking maybe for y'all to really review this one to make sure how is it going to tie in with the future park plan, and also, like you mentioned, providing emergency services and whatnot. And also just the fact that it's, also you've got a development being built right now on Donaghy, just 2 doors down from the proposed side. And there's talk of rezoning at the roundabout with how do you say it, Favor, Favre? I'm not from around here, so. With Favre and Donnie, there's plans of putting some, well, there's talk of putting some residential in there, so with Donnie being I believe, a minor arterial, you're looking at a lot of traffic on there as well. So there's, like I said, I'm not opposed to that particular plan, but there is a lot to consider because they're really putting a lot of development on South Donnie, which is kind of a narrow road, and it's getting pretty busy as it is. So, and also mention also, like I said, the park plan too.
1 second, just bear.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else to speak in opposition? All right, I'll call this back into committee, although I feel like it's already been here. What say you guys?
We're tasked with the land use, so
We are tasked with the land use, and I'll remind you guys of that. But he made a good point in his oppositions that there's a lot of traffic on Donaghy, and this is at one of the narrower parts of Donaghy, South Donaghy. Right as you get to that bridge, it's pretty narrow there.
Yep.
But,
you're still gonna have to put it there and then fix the roads.
That's
That's
something I feel like we
just
should
the
talk
way-
about in our next agenda item, the master street plan.
Well,
That's not their fault that
I
that
get-
street
right.
sucks.
I get it's not their fault, but I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, I just don't ever think traffic is a reason
That's
hardly
always-
to do anything. I mean,
And
there's
consider any other
few
scenario,
extenuating
right? If the Blankenship sold off that back half of the property and it became single family, more traffic.
Oh, it's gonna be
Or
way
if
more
it was
traffic.
Retail or
Oh, I
a
agree.
school.
yeah. And we
Even
would
more
have
I don't
no
think there's
problem doing
anything we can
R1
do
right
about
there.
that, Yeah.
There's no way you could say no. And I think that's gonna help get the trail there probably quicker. You know, once people are kind of around there, they start doing that. Anyway, I don't see a problem with it. But
This time I'll make a motion to approve.
I'm not gonna make a motion this time.
I just made the motion.
Oh, good.
I did. Okay.
There is a motion on the floor to approve.
Got a second by Arthur.
Second by Arthur.
There is a second by Arthur. Is there any more discussion? Seeing if there is none, I'll call this to a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Knew it.
Motion carries.
It's been a minute, Brian.
I know.
It's been a minute.
I thought we were gonna get through the whole night.
All right, the last
Here we
item on the
go.
agenda. Consideration to amend the master street plan. So I'd like to remind you that you have 10 minutes.
Well, I'll start the discussion on this. Planning staff's been working with the engineering staff for well over a year now, meeting and going over the master street plan to amend it. And the last major amendment or modification, we've had several modifications along the way, and I listed some in the report there that have happened over time. But the main chunk of the city really hasn't been looked at since 2004 as far as the master street plan. Like I say, about a half dozen other changes have happened since then. So this is the comprehensive plan, which has the master street plan superimposed over it, which is the 2004 version. There's been a few changes along the way. You have to get on our digital version online to actually see, because we didn't print more of these. And little bitty right here on the back is the master street plan broken out and some text to talk about it. So anyway, we've been looking at revising this and trying to make some more sense, I guess you could say, since it hasn't been touched in the grand scale in so long of a time. Obviously, things have changed over the years, and our population has increased, and traffic has increased, and all that stuff. So the other plan you received in your report is a mini version. This is also posted on the city website, so people could see it there. But I mean, there's a lot of changes we've done here, and it's hard to go over every single one of them. But I pointed out some of the bigger ones in the report. Salem Road is one of them. It was a minor arterial on the older plan. Donaghy was shown as a major arterial. Make sure I'm not getting that wrong. Yep. Salem was a minor arterial, Donaghy was a major arterial, basically from stem to stern. And one of the big changes that we've looked at is now that Salem practically goes from the county outside, south of Conway, all the way and up and over the hill to outside the county again, connecting with Highway 25. It seems like the obvious choice to make that more of the major north-south arterial that we would like to see to move traffic in that fashion through the city. Donaghy, we've actually downgraded from a major arterial to a minor arterial, and part of that's because of the historic nature of the area, the university. I mean, we still need to serve those college kids getting to campus and all that, but we also need to be participants in a plan that, you know, the Donaghy corridor study that was done several years ago basically calls for Donaghy to become more of a university district, walkable, more urban, basically a new downtown in so many ways that serves the college area, and then basically transitions to the residential areas to the north and allows a lot of the older homes that are no longer desirable through there as single-family residences, a lot of them are rental property, that kind of thing, to transition into something a little different, a little more cooler, a little more, well, commercial is the word, but it fits on a scale that fits in with the neighborhood like you'll see a lot around university districts and so forth. But over time, it basically developed as a more urban environment. And you have to be careful not get, you know, as you get away from that to the east and west, you got to scale it back down again. But the Donaghy corridor study basically lines a lot of that stuff out. That's one big change, those two, Donaghy. A lot of other changes, Oak Street, from Harkrider to Court Street, we upgraded from two major arterial from a minor arterial. Some of the bigger ones out south of town, Old Military Road, Round Mountain Road, Mill Pond. And a lot of those on the south side, we've had some comments from folks talking about Wasson and Mill Pond. Those were already shown as major arterials before on the old plan. They're still maintained that way on the new plan. One thing that I think has caused a lot of concern amongst the residents of the older part of town is we've shown a lot of routes that would be alarming to me too without having an explanation seeing them, is collectors and minor arterials and things running through the older parts of town. But basically what we have done is just shown what's already there. And that doesn't mean the speed limits are going to change. That doesn't mean that we're going to instantly go through there and widen the roads to some ugly giant. I mean, we're not planning on putting Dave Ward Drive down College Avenue. That's just not part of the plan and never should be, or Robinson or Caldwell or any of those. So in that part of town, you go back to the 1930s plat book, which is based on a 1890s, even earlier drawing and so forth. The forefathers of Conway desired 60-foot wide rights-of-way through a majority of the older parts of town, even to the north at the Hendricks Addition. A lot of those are some of the most beautiful streets in town, I think, and I don't want to touch them to tell the truth, but our plan shows those, and it reflects the state that they are, as in those are collectors. Jefferson, Cleveland, Fleming, all those are basically shown on the old plat from the 1920s, a 60-foot right-of-way, so we show them as collectors, and that's just reflecting the reality of what's already there. Same deal along Caldwell, Robinson, Bruce, Scott. All those things are basically just showing what's already there. Again, no major plans to widen those or take away the context, and that's part of the plan, too, that we're working on. As you see in your report, the cross sections. And this is somewhat of a new concept. It's been done in a lot of other towns, but we have the cross sections that basically show the desirable pattern. It's like a section through the street to show where the travel lanes will be, the sidewalks. In some cases, where the side paths would be, in those cases where we don't want to see just a sidewalk, we might want to see bike lanes plus a sidewalk. Other cases, we might want to see a wide pedestrian path that includes pedestrian and bike capability, such as on the collector, it's shown on that one. Minor arterial alternative, and the major arterial, we're showing those mixed-use sidewalk trail-like things on the side of the road. So that helps rein in the desired pattern for the streets as they go through the area. Because one of the differences you can say between the old plan and the new plan is this just said 100-foot arterial major right-of-way. It doesn't show you any real guidance about what we want that to look like. Dave Orr Drive would be the same thing as Prince Street, would be the same thing as Hogan, and we don't want that. I mean, we want to put proper cross-sections with those streets to maintain, the word used a lot is context sensitive. We want the road to reflect what's going on with the land use on either side of it, like Donaghy. We may show it as a minor arterial, but it may not be the same shape as, find another good one here, say College or Tyler. Those are all minor arterials also. They'll have a different reflection when they're going through a residential neighborhood, going through a commercial district, all that kind of thing. So the cross sections give you a start with that, and they're still not 100% because each road is unique in its way and will need to be looked at. But that gives you the starting point of what we're starting from on the desired, how the street's supposed to look and function through whatever zone it's going through. So that's in a nutshell what we're doing. I can answer or try to answer any specific thing. Oh, the other thing I guess I should point out is tonight, state law, y'all just make a recommendation basically to the city council, like zonings and a lot of other actions you do. So state law says that the planning commission, number one, if you don't have a master street plan, before you can even do zoning, a planning commission has to adopt a master street plan. So we've got one. We've had one since the 1957 or something. It's about the oldest one I can find. So we've had a master street plan. We're amending it again. Whenever you amend it, we need to have a public hearing and let folks put in, weigh in their thoughts on it. But y'all need to touch it, bless it, basically. So we feel that staff, and we also have Finley Benson here, our city engineer. If y'all need to ask him any specifics about some of this, he's definitely had his hand in it a lot. And so anyway, we need to have the planning commission take a look at it. Hopefully y'all will, like I say, I think it's about 95% there. We're not all through with it just yet, but between now, maybe the time that y'all take a look at it and maybe approve a recommendation forward to the city council, we'll take the public comments still coming in, take a look at it, make adjustments, and get it in front of the council probably in April. So sometime April is what we're looking at right now. And we'll go from there.
This has nothing to do with the order of things, what happens first, what happens second, you know, what the priorities are. We're not in charge of any of that or anything. I mostly wanted to state that for everybody here, that,
Right,
that
right.
we have no real control over that
Right.
part of it.
No, city council definitely calls the shots on where the money will be spent and for which roads. And Finley's been working on a capital improvements plan, which basically will lay out the marching order of which streets and which order they will get in priority through whenever the budget allows. And the new tax, we were talking about that earlier, that starts April the 1st. That will go towards a lot of these street projects. So that will have an order that will be decided by the city council. And the other thing, a lot of people misunderstood, I guess, or I didn't point it out well in the report, because the old classification system talks about, and it's kind of old engineering terms in a lot of ways, talks about major arterial having a 50 mile per hour speed limit, a collector having a 30 or 40, whatever it is. But those are engineering design standards that basically go from engineering design manuals on how to build a road type thing. And just because we show a street as a major arterial, minor, whatever, the speed limits are not factored in that. That's a thing that you look at. If you're trying to build a Dave Orr Drive and you want to move cars as fast as possible from one to the other, there's lots of mechanisms. You don't, like Dave Orr Drive has an access management plan on it. You can't put a driveway in unless it's 300 feet away from another driveway. It has to be approved by us, Metro Plan, and the Highway Department. So there's mechanisms there in order to move cars, because Dave Orr Drive is one of our things we see, you know, I won't call it a traffic sewer, but that's what I call them. It's made to move cars. That's what it's for. It's not so much for pedestrians and all that, and you got to have them. So that's our freeway, in a sense, to run cars through town. Again, just because that one's a major arterial, Prince is a major arterial, but they're two different things, and the speed limits are going to be different. There's nothing that locks in a speed limit just because you call it a certain classification.
Yeah, like, Stanley Russell's you know, an arterial, but you're not gonna drive 40 miles an hour on that road.
Sure.
At your own risk.
You need new shocks if you do, but I mean, that's just a residential neighborhood. You're not gonna
Right.
drive that fast on it.
Right.
So, I mean, you gotta use common sense.
Can you repeat again what you were saying about how the monies would be distributed under this master street plan? Or did
Well, the
you
money is
say
not so much
something?
tied to the master street plan. The master street plan is just a guide when the money becomes available, how are we gonna build the street? How much is it gonna cost? Because a major arterial may call for a 60-foot wide street, pavement curb to curb, something, you know, collector calls for 36-foot wide curb to curb. So when the money becomes available, you lean to the master street plan for guidance as far as what is the desired street, how wide is it gonna be, where the sidewalk's gonna be, and from that, the city can figure out the cost of building that street, but there's really no economic money tied to the plan itself.
Well, I just have a comment or concern. I don't see anything between Middle Road and, say, Lower Ridge Road and past I-40, as far as on your list, taking it from major to minor to collector or whatever. So I do, kind of concerned that something needs to be looked at over that area too. Over by Florence Madison School,
Right.
there are not any sidewalks leading to that school, and the road is Florence Madison is very narrow. So children that are walking to and from school, and you have traffic coming to and from the school, it puts everybody in a bad position, because there are any sidewalks on Florence Madison.
Right.
So does this,
What's
but
off
does
of
this
East German?
control that?
Sherman.
What's
This-
that?
This wouldn't have, would the master street plan have any effect on that?
I don't know.
That's more-
Not really, because that's kind of existing conditions. It somewhat sets the tone, I guess you could say, when and if the city gets out there and does improvements. I mean, Florence Madison is pretty much built. As new development happens, a lot of areas of town, there's probably not going to see a whole lot of new development. When new development does happen, property gets replatted. The city, and that's another big important part of the master street plan, is that when property is replatted, we're able then to capture additional right-of-way, like the Blankenship property here tonight. They did that prior to new regulations that we have, and they did not have to plat their property, where they're fixing to split it in half. And if you look on our GIS system maps online, you'll see their property almost goes to the center line, or it may even go to the center line, because that's where their property line ends of Dave Ward Drive, really on Donaghy? On Donaghy. So when they replat that property, we're going to capture 50 feet of right-of-way from that center line back. The road is already there. It's there by prescriptive easement. It's been there forever, and it just kind of is. It exists. But we'll have that additional right-of-way so that when the narrowness gets to be too much, the city can go through there and improve that. So part of the master street plan is the ability for the city to capture right-of-way as property is developed. So Florence Madison's a little different case there, where probably not going to see a lot of redevelopment happening through there right now. That's one of those things where the city just needs to get that on the list, the priority list of things to go rebuild the street, make it wider, add sidewalks, whatever we can do to make it fit, the road fit the environment, the things that are taking place there next to it.
We talked about that.
But the master street plan will show it like, as I'm not sure which that's on East German, right? I mean, we're showing that as a minor arterial. So as that one redevelops, we'll look at the model of redeveloping it as a minor arterial, but it'll be all on the city's end to more of a maintenance and ongoing, thing along those ends. We've had a lot of comments come in from people in the public. This has been on the website, and we've been taking public comments for over a month now. And a lot of them are things like that, which are kind of related to the master street plan, like somebody's wanting additional street lights, or they want an additional roundabout, or those are all good ideas, but they're not the big purpose of the master street plan.
Concerns.
For safety, definitely. And that's something where basically the council just needs to assign a priority to that street and put money towards improvements there. And I'll get out of the way and y'all take public comments unless you got anything else for me.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
There's really not a 2 and a 4, you just gonna give everybody 2 minutes? 2 minutes.
Yeah, so since it's really not a 2 or a 4, I'm going to limit discussion for each person to 2 minutes. And say Brian took the 10, but she actually took more than 10.
I took some of his, so.
That's all right, though. He had good insight, and I think it was a good use of all of our time. So, anybody else have input on this?
Say, surely somebody.
Hi, I'm Kim Tyler. My address is 185 Cedar and Greenbrier. I'm coming tonight on behalf of the Faulkner County Home Builders Association. First of all, I want to thank the Planning and Development Department for coming to a recent builder and developer meeting and presenting not only that, but the upcoming Acela software program that will be advantageous to us all. Can I borrow that for a second? Thank you, sir. The questions, after reviewing and hearing their presentation and doing questions that they asked me to bring up was on, for either Mr. Vincent or Mr. Patrick, on the planned part that's in parentheses. Of course, we know we're, with the subdivision ordinance, anytime you develop land, you're going to, whatever it says after it's adopted, that's what you have to dedicate for right-of-way. But one of the questions was the planned collectors, the planned minor and major arterials. If it's going through a piece of property that's not even developed, such as, let's just bring out one up near Beaver Fork, when it's going from Highway 25 over to the existing one, which was the old going to Beaver Fork, and you've got the dotted line. When the platting process happens, will you have to, at that time, dedicate that, or is it in the planning stages and you're going to try? I think that's what they asked me to ask.
Well, just like now, I mean, that procedure really hasn't changed. Whenever, if we show a proposed route and it goes through your property and you develop that property, we want to see the road right of way dedicated. And if it's like the one that's shown going from Beaver Fork, Rogers Lane, say over to Hogan Lane, to a future connector, interstate connection, that shows a major arterial. So what you would do is dedicate 100 feet of right of way, but you also have to build a street, but you wouldn't have to build a major arterial. You build up to a collector street, 36-foot wide street through that property. And that's basically the same procedure we've used forever.
And the other question was, were the, and I almost hate to ask this, but the people that own this property currently, were they aware that this has been proposed going through their land?
Put it out on the website.
Okay, that's, okay, but they were not contacted individually? No. Okay. Otherwise, I am glad that it is, I know my 2 minutes is probably up, but I'm glad to see a revised one, updated over 14 years, but a lot of work went in it, and it's easy to read. But again, thanks for the planning and development for coming out and helping us with all of our questions we had. They did a good job.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Andy Carkin, 1496 Pyramid. I used to work for the city of Russellville as the IT person, and I spent a lot of time talking with David Harris. Do you ever know him? Yeah, great guy. And but one thing is communication with the people, because I was looking at the plan, and I really like it, but there are some places like from Wasson where they're going to want to put in a diagonal line to connect with South Donnie, for instance, and that goes through some people's homes right now, some nice houses too. But I think it'd be probably a good idea for the city to contact those people now directly and say, by the way, maybe in 20 years we're going to tear down your house and put a road through here or something like that. I mean, it might not happen. It's just it's a dotted line on the map, but now would be the time to let people know, just in case. Because My office is at the Public Works office, and citizens like to complain. I didn't know it in here, but now would be the time to contact them directly. I think that'd be a good idea.
Have you seen all the dots on this page?
The ones that are near me, I looked at, and they're quite a lot, but. Right. Well, see, that's where it ties in with the engineer plan, because, well, look, we're not going to do that for 50 years and leave it alone. But the future Southern Connector, whatever it's called, for instance, that might possibly happen in 10 years. And there's obviously some need to rework some intersections sooner instead of later with Vincent's plan there. So, but it'd be a good idea to contact people, not to raise alarms or anything, but still make an effort, because people don't necessarily look at the website, especially a municipal government website, and they don't come to planning commission meetings. So, but that's just my 2 cents. I like the plan, though. It's a good plan.
Thank you.
We tried our best to steer away from any type of homes. If there's some on there, we'll try to find them and make sure we don't. We try to go on property lines, try to steer clear of any type of structures, but
Yep.
there could be some on there.
I just have a question. I don't really, what I heard you say about the historic district, like Caldwell and Robinson, is that you're not gonna widen it, you're not going to raise the speed limit to 45 miles an hour. It's just kind of basically gonna stay the way it is.
Here's our TV viewing audience, but yeah, to answer the question, I mean, like I say, so much of the things that we've added in the older part of town are just reflecting the existing conditions that are there. The roads are already that wide, or they're already, the right-of-way, you understand, is wider than the road itself. The road is, say, 36 feet wide in the case of, like Robinson, I think, and then the right-of-way itself is 80 feet wide. So 40 feet from the center line back, then your property lines start. In those areas, you'll have your utilities and sidewalks and all that kind of thing. So, you know, I can't say never, never, but those conditions exist already as far as the right-of-way. The city desired, for whatever reason, and the council approved it, to build a freeway down Robinson, and it fits in that right-of-way. They could do it tomorrow. I don't think anybody in the world wants that to happen. I certainly don't. But there are no plans on the table to change any of that stuff in the older part of town at all. I know the one, I guess it's just by the courthouse, is on the current plan, right, going forward. I'm looking at Finley Vincent, our city engineer. Sure, but
It's here. It's gonna be here a while.
no, our plan actually does not show. Our plan does not show any roundabouts. There's text that accompanies this document that basically says any street that's classified as a collector or above is subject to having a roundabout on it, not necessarily absolutely going to have one, but in those instances where it makes sense, the desired intersection in the town is to put a roundabout on it, and the connection there, I mean, like I say, that's outside of really the realm of what we're doing with the master street plan. But the corner of Locust and
Where's the prison?
Robinson, excuse me, I gotta get all straight here. I mean, that's a funky corner as it is. I think a roundabout would be good there, to tell the truth, and it could actually even have some art or something in it there next to the courthouse and be a feature for that little thing right there. And there's probably lots of right-of-way that it's already there enough to build it without getting any more property, and a lot of that's county property anyway. So, could happen. I can't say it's not gonna happen, but it's really a little bit outside the realm of what we're talking about with the master street plan changes.
Thank you for clarifying in your emails to us, contacted you from the historic district today, because it helped explain that you were going to widen our road even wider, and we weren't going to have a NASCAR freeway.
Sure, sure. No, and I understand when you see this, that's what you might think, because without some better explanation, big red line looks like a big red line all over town, so.
And you know, we figured between Locust and Donaghy, to get a car going up to 40 miles an hour in 7 blocks.
No, nobody desires that at all. No. Okay, I'm kind of getting a side conversation going here.
You're all right.
You're welcome.
They're the ones that are important.
Come on.
Come on down. You're the next contestant.
Hi, I'm Julia Fulmer. I live in Quail Creek subdivision, and I obviously am the one who's supposed to report back to my subdivision. But for one thing, our question also is about, I think does that cut across the belt? Well, there's, which you already know about the connection there, right across from our entrance, our subdivision entrance on Quail Creek. Does it cut across the Bell property?
It's a collector street.
Oh, yeah.
There is a collector shown connecting to Quail Creek that runs
Yeah.
across over the highway, the new Highway 25.
Right. Is that the Bell property?
I believe it's owned by several Bell family members.
Yeah,
It's
for
an old Highway
generation.
25 stuff.
And my question too is for like from my, or do they know about it?
Oh, yeah, they want it, actually.
Okay.
The conversations I've had with Matt Bell.
Okay.
He really kind of wants to see that happen.
And also, our question is, what else is to be done to that property in there? Would that be like apartments or some, we don't know. Someone said, I mean, is it going to be more subdivision? Is it going to be apartments, which we are not in favor of right there?
We don't know at this point, and whenever it gets rezoned, it'll have to come before the planning commission and ultimately the city council. But offhand, unless sewer comes to that area, there won't be any apartments because
Right, that was another thing.
we're going to have to have
Because
larger lots to have septic systems.
we were one of the first families out there. We built our home there, so, and that's fine. I mean, there's no problem out there with that. But, yeah, we're gonna say, oh my goodness, if apartments and, go in, that's gonna be. But the main reason is the safety issue, because it's really, there's not much room there. So, and we're just now getting some relief from all the traffic on Highway 25, where we would have to sit there for a long time to wait for, to be able to get out on Highway 25 and the old Highway 25. And the only other way we have in and out of our subdivision is just a little bit down, like on Skyline Drive, and it's the same situation. There's just not much room between those. And even if it's widened or whatever, which we love like it is, going to Beaver Fork is kind of like, it's wonderful. You're going like almost for a weekend vacation when you ride out that way to the lake and everything, but my point is that it's not safe to do that. And could that be put somewhere else?
Next, you're talking about the
Yes.
Bell property?
Why would it have to be there?
Well,
And why? I mean, there's not much driving there to go from one place to another there. It's just right there with the old Marlton Highway.
The more grid network you can provide in the city, that's why you can get around downtown. And then you have West Conway, and there's nothing but cul-de-sacs and roads that you can't, everybody's to funnel onto one road. Then you get traffic congestion because people can't fan out and find other routes. So part of the logic in laying out a master street plan is trying to find a grid network so that everybody has alternative routes instead of just stuck to one way to get anywhere.
I know.
So that's partly the reason.
Well, we would hope that there's a different way to do that. Usually there's more than one way to solve problems. But like I said, the safety is the main reason, and we just really are not in favor of that for safety reasons.
Now, I will point out Highway 25, the old Highway 25, now Friendship Road was downgraded. It was a major arterial, and now it's a minor arterial, and it's now a city street. So
Yes.
probably unlikely that the city's gonna do any major upgrades out there, so it's gonna stay a nice countryish kind of road in a way.
Love
So,
that.
Can't say ever, but,
A recreational type thing is why people in that area live there, for the lake and for those types of activities. And, yeah, okay, so,
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments?
Keep 'em on time.
All
Going
right.
once?
Sold.
All right.
Sold. All right.
I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do, Brian. I'm not, I mean, something we had no input on. This is the first time we're seeing it. Why do they want our blessing? I mean, other than the state law?
Jack, like I say, the state law basically says that we're supposed to hold a public hearing, and that's good. We need public input, and then it's, needs to be touched by the planning commission in so many ways. So I would recommend and hope that y'all would approve it in the state that it's in. Like I say, I think it's at least 95% there, and then we'll take public input from now until the time we get to the council meeting and tweak on it some more, and I'll look for those houses we might be driving through and that kind of thing. And, I mean, there won't be any major modifications at this point, I don't think, but there'll be some tweaking as we go. So if y'all are happy enough with where we're at with this and feel that we're on the right path, I would hope you just would give us an approval, and then we'll take it forward to the council in April.
I'd like to have approval on what order things go in, but I make a motion to approve this.
I second it. I mean, what are we gonna do with it?
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
They worked on it a long time. It's, motion to approve.
We do have a motion on the floor to approve the master street plan as it is. Brian, has been seconded by Arthur. Any further discussion on this, commissioners?
It's a great plan.
Agreed.
They're a lot smarter than I am about it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Chairman, there being no further business, I make a motion to adjourn.
There's the motion on the floor to adjourn by Miss Ann. Has been seconded by Miss Ray.
Aye.
Sounds like the rain let up.
Let's get out of here.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you again.